Here are 10 signs that HMRC might be building a criminal case against you. Whenever I make a video about HMRC investigation, somebody inevitably leaves a comment. Well, that's my stress level sorted for the day. So let me start with some reassurances. Most people who hear from HMRC are not facing a criminal investigation. Most inquiries remain exactly that, inquiries. But over the years, I've noticed that people who do end up in serious difficulties often say the same thing. I had a feeling that something wasn't quite right. The questions seemed different. HMRC appeared to know more than expected. The tone changed. Things started feeling more serious. So in this video, I want to talk about 10 signs that HMRC may be looking at your case differently. Now, this doesn't mean you're definitely facing criminal proceedings. It doesn't mean you're about to get a knock on the door at 6 o'clock in the morning. But these are the sorts of things that should make you stop, pay attention, and get proper advice. Right. So let's get into it. Sign number 1. HMRC suddenly knows more than you thought they would. This is usually the first thing people notice. You'll receive a letter, and halfway through reading it, you'll think, wait a minute. How do they know that? Maybe it's a bank account. Maybe it's a property sale. Maybe it's income from years ago. The reality is HMRC receives information from a huge number of sources. What surprises people isn't that HMRC has information. It's how much information they appear to have. Now, on its own, this isn't a sign of a criminal investigation. But if HMRC seems to be piecing together a detailed picture of your financial affairs, it's worth taking the matter seriously. Number 2, the questions become very specific. For example, there's a big difference between, can you explain this transaction? And please explain this transaction that occurred on a specific date involving this account. That is a completely different level of detail. And when HMRC starts asking highly targeted questions, it can suggest that they've already carried out a significant amount of background work, and they've already done their homework. It's probably not the time to start guessing the answers. Number 3, they seem interested in why you did something. This is one that catches people out. In ordinary tax inquiries, HMRC often focus on facts. What happened? What was declared? What wasn't declared? But when the discussion starts moving towards intent, things become more serious. Questions such as, for example, why was this omitted? Who made that decision? Were you aware of this at the time? Those aren't simply questions about numbers. They're questions about behavior. And that is a very important distinction. Number 4, they want a lot more records than you expected. Most people expect HMRC to ask for accounts or tax returns. What surprises them is when requests become more broader, such as emails, bank records, underlying documents, business correspondence, internal records. It's often the scope of the request that gets people's attention. Again, there may be perfectly legitimate reasons for this, but broad information gathering can indicate HMRC is looking at a bigger picture. Number 5, the matter suddenly feels more formal. This one's difficult to describe until you've seen it. The tone changes, the wording changes. The letters just feel different. People often say, I can't put my finger on it, but something's changed, and they're usually right. So, as the investigation progresses, communication often becomes more formal and more structured. That's often a signal that the stakes are starting to increase. Signal number 6, HMRC starts looking across multiple years. This is where people often realize the issue isn't going away quickly. Perhaps the inquiry started with 1 tax year, then it became 3, then 5, 10. So when HMRC starts widening the time frame, they're often looking to patterns rather than isolated mistakes. That's usually a sign that they are thinking strategically about the case. 7, you're invited to an interview under caution. This is generally the point where people stop saying it's probably nothing. An interview under caution is a formal criminal procedure. Now, don't misunderstand me. Understand me. An interview under caution does not automatically mean you're going to be prosecuted, but it does mean the matter is being dealt with very seriously. And if you ever find yourself in that situation, getting specialist advice beforehand is absolutely essential. Number 8, other agencies seem to become involved. Occasionally, people notice inquiries appearing from different directions. Sometimes they become aware that information is being shared. Sometimes they discover that other authorities are interested in the same facts. That can indicate the matter is being looked at more broadly than a routine tax inquiry. Again, it doesn't guarantee a criminal case, but it's certainly something to take very seriously. Number 9, HMRC appears to have a theory. This, in my view, is one of the biggest warning signs. You get the sense that HMRC isn't simply gathering information anymore. They're testing a particular explanation. They're checking whether the evidence supports a specific conclusion. And once the investigators reach that stage, every answer becomes more important, critical, really. Number 10, your gut tells you that something has changed. Now, I appreciate that that's not a legal test. You won't find that in the legislation, but honestly, I've seen that too many times for it to ignore. People often sense when an inquiry has moved into different territory. They can't always explain why. But they do know the questions are different, the communication is different, and the general atmosphere is different, and quite often they're right. So what should you do? Well, as I've said in the earlier videos, don't panic. And I know that's very easy for me to say, but panic causes people to do very silly things, unfortunately. They start deleting emails, they start throwing away records, they start trying to tidy things up. Oh, that's almost generally always a mistake. Keep everything. Preserve every record and get advice early. The people who tend to achieve the best outcomes aren't necessarily the people with the simplest cases. They're often the people who recognize the seriousness of the situation early and dealt with it properly. So, to close, the important thing to remember is that none of these signs on their own mean you're facing prosecution, but they are indicators that a matter may be becoming more serious. And if you've spotted several of them at the same time, it's probably worth paying attention. Seems obvious, I know. If you found this video useful, let me know in the comments. And if there are other HMRC investigation topics you'd like me to cover, drop them below as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.